The run fest in Sydney continues. 727 runs scored in the second ODI, but 51 more by Australia. They've taken the second game. They've taken the ODI series. It's a similar sort of conversation that we'll have in the review of the second game on ESPN Cricket for Match Day, as we did to the first with Tom Moody and Gautam Gambhir. Gentlemen, welcome. And it's a similar sort of feeling, isn't it? Just too many runs, Gautam.
And pretty one-sided as well. Yes, you can see that India's got 340, 350, but then again, yes, if you're chasing 390, someone needs to play a free kind of an innings, and especially obviously in the top three. But then when you end up getting wickets up front, especially what Australia did, then it's always difficult from there on.
There are conversations that can be had about batting, Tom, but on a day like this, when you've conceded 390s, the game just done at halftime. Even though there were moments in the chase, you just feel you can't really go after the batting when you have a target of 390.
Well, I think, what we've seen so far in these first two ODIs is that India have clearly got some holes in their fielding and also, more importantly, their bowling. And therefore, Australia have taken total advantage of that on a very good batting surface and have been fortunate to win the toss on both occasions and bat the opposition out of the game. It would have been a different story, possibly, if India had won the toss and had the chance to bat first, but that wasn't the case. They were put under pressure as a bowling unit and as a fielding unit, and found that at half time they were nearly closely out of the game.
Fair point. Wonder what India would have done had they had that slight advantage or that significant advantage of winning the toss and going first. But I know, I can predict that you'd said that that's not something you can control. When you did have a bowl in this game, second up, and you saw the tactical errors that were made early, how costly were they? Just the fact that India's bowlers didn't get their best chance to actually get into a rhythm to have the best impact against the strong Australian batting.
Well, I think the biggest concern for India is one, obviously their bowling combination. We've talked long and hard about their sixth bowling option, but that looks like it's resolved now because Hardik Pandya bowled a few overs, which was great to see, and bowled very well, mind you, when he did bowl. To me, it's more about their lack of potency with the new ball. And this is just not these two games. It appears this has been a trend for a period of time where they've struggled to take wickets in the early parts of 50-over games. Now, that to me is a concern. One bowler who you may sort of, look at this opinion, but one bowler I feel they really do miss is Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. And the reason I say they miss him is because he's a highly skilled new ball bowler, and he has the ability to take wickets with that new ball. He's also a very good option at the back end of the innings. Yes, he got injured in the early parts of the IPL, but to me, bowlers like him are, I think, missed in this combination.
We've seen a lack of swing or lack of movement in general, though, Tom, in these first two games. And we're just checking. Gautam, can you hear me loud and clear? I'm just making sure your mic's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Then let me come to you, Gautam. Great. So we know this is a problem now. The new ball, and they're good bowlers. No one's doubting their capability, but they're not being able to take wickets. We've seen the white ball not swing. What can they do to actually have a bigger impact?
Probably leadership is important. The tactical mistakes that were made is probably equally important as well, because you too much depend on Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Shami, and then you end up giving only 2 overs to Jasprit Bumrah. Where are you going to get your wickets from? Your strike bowler, your premier fast bowler in world cricket, not only in India, by far probably one of the best fast bowlers going around in world cricket, and you end up giving him 2 overs. And we've always maintained that Australians are top heavy, and all the top three are in very good form. So you got to strike early, you got to take wickets up front, and who better than Jasprit Bumrah? But if he bowls only 2 overs up front, so it amazes me that obviously it's not even only a tactical error, it's a blunder. And no other captain, I don't think so, in world cricket would ask Jasprit Bumrah to bowl 2 overs in a 50-over game with the new ball in Australia. Yes, it was conditions which were flat, hot, all that is fine, but I don't see any other captain in world cricket who has Jasprit Bumrah and will ask him to bowl 2 overs.
Yeah, I heard your comments mid-innings, and that comes back again to bite India in this defeat. If we just compare both bowling attacks, Tom, and yes, one's defending and one's setting, it's a different pressure, I guess, when you're bowling first, bowling second. But does it look like Australia's bowlers are planning better for India's batsmen than India's bowlers are for Australia's batsmen?
Yeah, look, I don't think it's so much about their planning, because I think Australia have got some concerns themselves. Like Mitchell Stark
Right.
is far from his best, and he's been ranked over the last few years as one of the best ODI bowlers in the world. So that's a potential concern for Australia, that he's yet to really hit his straps. To me, the big difference between the two teams have been Hazelwood and Zampa. Hazelwood has bowled that traditional Australian hard length, which is that length that sort of sits about 6 inches above the stumps. He's bowled very straight, and Hazelwood is a lot quicker than a lot of people give him credit for. He's into the 140s, and he does hit the bat very hard. He's got a very good bouncer as well. He's been the leader of the pack from the pace bowling perspective for Australia, and I think Zampa also has bowled very well. And he's continued to bowl well against India and in ODI cricket period over the last couple of years. So he's a little bit of an unsung hero in this whole thing.
Let's go deeper into that, since you've mentioned it. Tom, I'll come to you as well, Gautam. But have Bumrah, Shami, Saini not quite got the length right then, with what you talk about, the ideal length to bowl that Hazelwood has?
Yeah, look, possibly. I think one thing they've done is probably bowl with more width. And I did see Australia driving the ball a lot more than what India have been driving. So there's been a lot more full balls that have been half volleys that have been put away. Whether that is just judgment on, a misjudgment on trying to bowl a Yorker or not, or it's just a poor length delivery. The other thing I did note, and this is sort of putting my coach's hat on, is the amount of times that a bowler would come back into the attack and the first ball would go for 4. They would present an easy scoring option. That to me is just such a critical time of you being re-engaged into the attack, because it's your chance to try to build some pressure. If you're getting hit for a boundary in the first ball of your over, more often than not, you're having to chase the game. You've got 5 more balls on a flat wicket where the ball's not doing a lot. It's not doing a lot off the seam. It's a very hard game when you're in that situation. From a batting perspective, as Gautam would vouch for, is that there's nothing better than getting a boundary away early in an over, because it sets your over up. You know that you can at least, get to 10, if not more, off the over if you're putting someone under pressure.
Gautam?
So again, Ronak, if you see both the teams, Australia's got bowlers who are tall bowlers. They are actually more hit the deck bowlers. And if you see Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Shami, they're probably bowlers who are they got to pitch it up to get the most out of the conditions and most out of the wicket as well. So it's difficult to compare both the bowlers, fast bowlers from either sides. But again, and you got to give it a lot of credit to Aaron Finch as well. The way he's used Josh Hazelwood, he's given him long spells. In the first game he bowled him 6 overs up front. Today he bowled him 5 overs up front. Yes, Mitchell Stark has not had the best of 2 games, but then again, the way Josh Hazelwood bowled, because he wanted to strike early, and he knew that obviously he had runs on the board, but again, wickets up front is crucial for any kind of a game as well. So I thought that from the tactical point of view, Aaron Finch was much better than Virat Kohli. Yes, from the bowling point of view, Josh Hazelwood and Pat Cummins were unbelievable.
Okay, I like that you mentioned Hazelwood, and you also mentioned Adam Zampa. Now you compare Zampa and Chahal, and yes, again, one spinner's got loads of runs, batsmen taking him on, but it looks like the Aussie batsmen, when they're batting first, are also taking Yuzvendra Chahal on. He's gone for 89 in one game, he's gone for 71 in the other, he's got just the 1 wicket. Is there anything that we can look at as to why Chahal hasn't been as effective as Adam Zampa? Gautam?
It could be because he's played too much of T20 cricket, could be just the defensive mindset as well. But if you see Adam Zampa, you can't compare Adam Zampa to Yuzvendra Chahal, because Adam Zampa had 370 in the first game and 390 in the second game to defend. So it's always difficult for spinners. Spinners who've got runs on the board can actually be more expressive, and they can actually probably gamble a little bit more. But at the same time, you've got to give credit to the batters as well. They have shown a lot of intent, especially from the Australian point of view, against Yuzvendra Chahal, and a lot to do with because they know that India are only playing with 5 bowlers. So if they look to target 1 or 2 bowlers, obviously it's going to be panic time for India. So that's the reason why they've actually attacked Yuzvendra Chahal and Navdeep Saini, because India has no one to fall back on. But on the other side, if you see, yes, Zampa had runs on the board, plus Zampa didn't have so much of pressure because they had Glenn Maxwell and Moises Hendricks in this game, and in the previous game they had Marcus Stoinis. So it's a combination of everything. Zampa's bowled better than Chahal, no doubt. Yes, we have to give it to Zampa, but again, there is a combination of a lot of other things which actually has to go your way. Probably from the mental point of view, and that's the reason why I think that you can't compare both of them at the moment.
Tom?
Yeah, they're two different bowlers as well, and I totally agree. It's a lot easier for a bowler, particularly a spin bowler, when you've got a significant total on the board. It allows you to bowl with a lot more freedom without the pressure of worrying about going for runs. You can be a little bit more attacking. Zampa, to me, also has bowled a lot straighter line and a little bit quicker through the air than what Chahal has. So, I think that style on a flatter wicket is probably more effective. And let's face it, Zampa hasn't ripped through the Indian top order, but what he's done is played an important role. And where normally India would turn to their spinners, in this case Chahal and Jadeja for that matter, to try to have an impact in the middle of the game, they've struggled to have that impact. So therefore the game has drifted away from them, and they're in that situation where they're chasing big totals.
Is there, from the evidence of 100 overs of India in the field now, an impression, Tom, that there's some kind of IPL hangover, that either with the way the bowlers haven't been able to adapt as quickly to Australia, or the fact that concentration levels drop in the field for a long period of time? Is there some kind of impression you get that there is some kind of IPL hangover?
Well, I'd hope not, because a number of those players out in the field in the Australian team were in the IPL as well. When you're playing for your country, those types of things shouldn't be creeping in. There's a lot more at stake. You're representing your whole country, and it's a pretty special honour to have. So, I can understand maybe the concentration. We've also got to appreciate the last couple of days in Sydney have been extreme temperatures. It's 40 degrees there today, so it's very taxing on them physically. They've only had the one rest day between the two one-dayers. Again, I'm throwing up different possibilities to why. And both times India have been in the field in the sunshine up front, so they've had a tough hand dealt to them, but that doesn't mean that you promote then or put on a poor or shoddy display of fielding or bowling performance. I think what it is, it's a true reflection of where both teams are at the moment. India are still trying to find their right combination. Navdeep Saini is obviously still very new to ODI cricket and finding his way. Also, they haven't had the luxury of the flexibility of that sixth bowler. Yes, they did today, which surprised us all, but they're still finding themselves, I think. So there's nothing I would be concerning myself with too much, but there's certainly plenty for them to take away and work on, because there's a number of gaps in their game that need assessing.
Gautam?
Spot on. I reckon what Tom said was absolutely spot on, that there's a huge difference. And plus, you can't have the hangover of IPL. And as just Tom mentioned, that there are a lot of Australian players in this team who are part of the IPL as well. And when you're playing for your country, there are no excuses. And it's a great honor as well. And plus, at the same time, if you see that there was just not on the button. And again, if you see, I'll keep going back to the same thing as well, that yes, 5 bowlers was always a concern, especially against a strong batting lineup like Australia. And in Australia, yes, you can actually play with 5 bowlers in Indian conditions where there is some help for the spinners, 2 spinners, but there is hardly any help for Ravindra Jadeja, and for that matter, Yuzvendra Chahal as well. So obviously it becomes even more dicey when you play 5 bowlers. At the same time, Australia were absolutely ruthless, and they knew how important it is. It's a long tour to get momentum up front. And once you get momentum up front, it's very difficult for any side to beat, and that's why you have to give it to Australia, that they knew that obviously in last couple of series India has been very, very impressive against Australia, but this time around, especially with coming back of David Warner and Steve Smith. David Warner and Steve Smith coming back in this side and playing in Australia will always be a huge threat. And at the same time, if you don't get wicket up front, it's going to be a huge challenge. And I'm sure that I said in pre-match show as well that Indian bowlers will be wary of Steve Smith, because if he gets in now, obviously T20 format will be different. If he gets in Test cricket, it's going to be a long summer for Indian bowlers. So it's the task harder for the Indian fast bowlers, and I'm sure the way Steve Smith have started, it's going to be a huge concern how to get him out.
Yeah, I think I get the feeling, but this is not the first or last time we're going to speak of Steve Smith on our shows this summer. But the way it started, there's that ominous sort of feeling of Steve Smith having a big summer at home. One individual contest that I'd love both of you to just comment on is, now, in spite of the heaps of runs that Australia got, when Hardik Pandya walked in, India needed about 116, 15 overs. You think there's anyone who's capable of getting that is a Hardik Pandya, along with KL Rahul, who was just switching gears. there seemed to be a very conscious plan of how to bowl to him, and they kept him quiet almost throughout that innings, Tom, in spite of the good runs that he comes from the last game. Take me through that period of play. It looks like a well-thought plan that worked against Hardik.
Yeah, look, they would have done a lot of homework on Hardik Pandya. There's no question, because they know that he's a threat. Let's face it, he's still relatively new to international cricket. Yes, he's been around for a couple of years, but I think people are starting to realise around the world how big a threat he is and how he can turn a game, on its head. He's a little bit like Kieran Pollard from the West Indies, who has done the same for the West Indies, done the same for Mumbai Indians over the years. He's nearly like sort of been brought up under his wing and starting to, prove to be as big a threat. So, like any player that it becomes a threat, the homework becomes more detailed, their plans become more sophisticated, and therefore they try to obviously undermine their opponent. And Pandya is definitely a player that they would have gone to school, making sure that they try to close him down as early as possible and keep the ball away from his hitting zones.
Yeah, I mean, when I made that point of India's bowlers versus Australia's batsmen and vice versa, Gautam, it was when they were bowling to Pandya, in spite of the heaps of runs they had, looked like a clear plan. Somewhere I felt like when India's bowlers were bowling to Maxwell, there wasn't much that was thought of. It was Maxwell having fun, and invariably those 30-40 runs make a big difference. 350, 390 is a significant difference. Thoughts?
And especially the one over of Pat Cummins when he bowled where he gave one run of against Hardik Pandya. The way he mixed it up and the way he was bowling the off stump, that wide line, he knew that obviously he's not going to give it in the arc of Hardik Pandya, and that was very, very impressive. And if you see the moment Hardik Pandya came in, Josh Hazelwood bowled that bouncer, a very good bouncer as well. So they actually mixed their lengths really well. They never wanted him to get settled with one length, and they kept mixing the line and the length as well. So there was absolutely clear plan, and kept the ball away from the arc as well, and kept mixing up the pace as well. So that was very smart bowling, not only from Hazelwood but from Pat Cummins as well, because in this kind of a game, every over counts. And if you end up giving one run, and that also off a wide against Hardik Pandya, who was set at that time, was phenomenal bowling from Pat Cummins.
Yep. All right, job well done to Australia, deserved winners of this ODI series. One more game, we'll preview that one and see if changes are required from India's perspective, whether they give anyone else a go, whether Australia have a few rests and rotations on. Thank you to Tom Moody and to Gautam Gambhir. More from them on our network, as this series has only just begun. And in India, you can even watch highlights of the entire game and clips of every bits of major action on ESPN Cricinfo. So don't miss that. We'll be back for build-up of the third ODI. Until then, on ESPN Cricinfo Match Dates. Bye-bye.